guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Amber. Today I'm going to do a video that I don't even know if I'm all the way 100% comfortable with doing. I've contemplated, should I do this video? Part of me says yes, part of me says no. Part of me is like terrified of people even knowing any of the things I'm going to talk about. But I've had a couple people ask me about my experience with postpartum depression and if I was comfortable enough to talk about it. Now, a couple months ago when I was raw in the flesh going through it, there would have been no way I would have been able to sit down in front of my camera and talk to the whole world, basically, because anybody can see this video. There would have been no way I could have done it. But I'm trying to put my fear to the side, and I feel like if I would have had someone take the time to actually care and try to help me through it, then maybe I wouldn't have went through such a dark time by myself. So I figured, why not share my experience, share my story, because it could help someone else. It could help a new mom. It could help someone who's currently going through this right now, because it's real, it's true. No matter how much we don't want to accept that postpartum depression is real, a lot of times we just brush it under the rug and people don't take it so serious, and sometimes some women have a hard time getting out of it. Fortunately, you guys, and I hope I don't cry during this video, because this is a very, very raw and scary experience that I went through with it. But let me get into it. So I didn't have any type of postpartum depression with my first one. My first pregnancy was a very stressful pregnancy with certain different things, but overall, when I had him, I felt like I was the most blessed, luckiest person in the world. I felt like I finally had my purpose. Everything seemed like it was just complete. When I had my last two boys, that's when the unexpected happened. Now, before I get into my postpartum depression, I will say I feel like a lot of this postpartum depression I was prone to getting, because if some of you don't know, some of you may know, I lost my dad when I was 13. He passed away, and I felt like I lost him at a very crucial point in my life. I was really, really close to my dad, and I was the last person that he actually said his last words to before he passed away. I feel the tears coming. You guys, I promise I'm trying. I hope I do not cry during this, but I do feel like a lot of my postpartum depression came from me losing my dad. Even to this day, this has been 14 years, I'm still not over losing my dad. And I guess you can say I had the whole missing dad, what do they say when a girl's like going through having an absent father and you're kind of looking for that love in the wrong places? I went through that phase in my life. A lot of things I wasn't proud of, but again, I always try to feel like some of those things made me who I am today as a person. But getting back into that, I feel like with me losing my dad, I had to grow up really, really fast. I lost my dad when I was 13, and when my dad passed away, my mom went into a very, very dark depression. Like, I'm talking about, she wouldn't even get off the couch. My grandma had to come over to basically make sure we were okay every day. So I had to step up. I had to take care of my younger brothers, and basically I was just forced into like this mother role. And after my dad passed away, we had a really, really rough life. My mom wasn't the best mom at all. She wasn't always the best mom, but to this day, I understand more now. Things I didn't understand at the time that I was so angry about, I get it. So I've struggled with spouts of depression, spouts of where I have like there's still so much anger and grief about losing my dad, and just so mad, just so much anger. So I feel like I was prone to the whole postpartum depression thing. And I feel like since I was so sensitive to easily getting depressed, I still didn't expect it to happen, since it didn't happen with my first child, you know. So when I had my son Tank, my 1-year-old now, when I was pregnant, my boyfriend's mom, we found out right before I was about to have the baby that she had stage 4 cancer. So she was sick. I had him in February of 2017. And a week after we brought him home, she went from sick to just worse. Just in a matter of a week. So after having him, at first, you know, the first, I'd say, week or two, I was fine. But once his mom kind of went from bad to, oh my gosh, when she went from bad to, you know, just, it's so hard to talk about. But when she went from, how fast it changed in that week's time from having the baby, you know, he wasn't home. He was always at the hospital with his mom, preparing everything for her. And that's when it hit me. And at first, like the first week when I was starting to feel not like myself, I just kind of put it all on, you know, everything going on with his mom and all of that. But it, you guys, when I say it hit me, it like hit me smack in the face. It got so bad. I was just so angry. I had all this anger, and I didn't even know where it was coming from. I was angry at him for not being here helping me. And I don't know if you guys watched my mom tag video, but I talked about I've had C-sections. So, you know, after you have a C-section, it's rough. And then I had, you know, Lakin was 3, Ellie was 2, and then this new baby. My boyfriend wasn't home because, you know, he was with his sick mom, which is where he should have been. And any anger I had was not intentionally towards that. It was just this depression that was taking over, and I started to like resent him. I started to resent my kids. It got to the point where it was so bad. I remember my son Lakin, I didn't even want anything to do with him. And a lot of times that's the thing, people think postpartum depression is just one type of thing, or, oh, you don't want anything to do with your baby. That's not always the case. It could be, you know, your husband, your boyfriend, your sister, your brother, your other children. It's not necessarily always the baby. So I didn't want like anything to do with him, and I feel horrible now that I even felt that way towards him. He wouldn't even do anything, and I would just like snap out, and it got so bad I was just crying. I would wake up just crying, and I didn't even know what I was crying for. And I remember specifically calling my mom, breaking down, saying, you know, I feel like I'm just so depressed, I'm going to snap. So she had my cousin come and pick him up, and he went over to my mom's for the weekend. And I still remember my boyfriend was so angry at me for that, and I kept like saying, you know, I was depressed. And at this point, you know, his mom, she had went to worse, but it wasn't, you know, at the end yet. So this was still, you know, the first couple weeks of having the Tank. He was only a couple weeks old at the time. So it didn't full on hit me yet. So I still remember how mad he was about me, you know, attempting to ask for help. I don't think he understood it. And I know everything was going on with his mom, and he had his feelings, and I've lost a parent, so I completely understand. My dad was sick for the very last year of his life, and I basically just watched him wither away and die, so I get it. And my anger, it wasn't towards him being there with his mom. A lot of it, it was just depressing. I don't even know what I was mad about. I was just so angry. So fast forward to when his mom does pass, things got like really bad between me and him. Really bad. Like, I felt like I didn't want to be with him, and I feel like he probably felt the same way. You know, everything going on with his mom, he was very lost, very distant, very disconnected. I felt like he was just pushed me completely out, and just when I thought I was kind of coming out of the depression, it like snapped right back into it, because he wasn't talking to me. We were just like fighting over every little thing, and I felt like when I was going through that depression with Tank, I felt like I was literally alone. Anybody that I reached out to didn't seem like they really cared, or they just kind of, you know, brushed it to the side. A lot of times what we do, we feel like, oh, it's just a phase, you'll get over it. But that wasn't the case. So with him, I felt like I was kind of like forced to get over it. And then I started working. And at that time when I was going through all that, I wasn't working, I was at home. So when he was around 4 months, I started working again, and I found out I was pregnant with Samir when Tank was, I want to say 4 months? No, 5, because I went to work when he was 4 months. About 5 months, I found out I was pregnant with Samir, and I was devastated. Like, I was devastated. I didn't want to be pregnant. I didn't want any parts in it. And then I just started thinking back to being, you know, depressed with Tank and how I felt and all. I just really felt alone. And you guys, like, after, like, how I said I went through, like, so many spells of depression after losing my dad, that was just, like, an ongoing thing with me. I've always had a hard time talking to people. I've always had a hard time expressing how I felt, and I always kept things bottled up inside of me. So that would cause me to go into depression super fast. Something little could just set me off to where I would just be like blah. I'd be so negative about everything. I wouldn't even want to do anything. I would just sit there like, I hate my life, and not even know why. So fast forward, I found out I was pregnant with Samir, and I remember breaking down in the bathroom, bawling, like literally bawling. And my boyfriend looked at me, and I could tell I like crushed his heart by how I reacted to finding out I was pregnant. And, you know, he said, you know, we're gonna be okay. And the first thing I was thinking, like, I'm working, what are we gonna do? I'm not ready for another baby so fast. I don't want this baby. Horrible thing to say. And I remember him saying to me, you know, this baby, this is a blessing, you know. I lost my mom. This could be something that's, you know, a blessing in return for that. It's been a horrible start to the year, you know, when his mom passed away. It was a very bad year. You know, we're blessed with a beautiful baby, and then just, you know, losing your parent. Anybody that's lost a parent, that's literally like the hardest thing you'll go through in your life. And like I said, it's been 14 years since I lost my dad, and I'm still not over it. And honestly, I don't think I ever will be. Everybody grieves in their own way, and we handle things our way. So I don't think I'll ever get over that. Well, fast forward, I'm pregnant. You know, I kind of get over that. I go through my spouts when I'm pregnant. I really was kind of distant in that pregnancy. I got over, you know, being upset about being pregnant and the what ifs, and just being worried about having another baby so fast, ever having a C-section. So there was just so much, like, I was just so stressed out over just not little things, you know. So as you all know now, that I just became a stay-at-home mom once I had him. So he came a couple weeks earlier, which, you know, we kind of expected, since I got pregnant so quickly after just having a baby. You know, there was that chance with after having multiple kids too, that there was a possibility of having him early. So he wasn't like premature or anything, but I had him a couple weeks early. And this time around, it literally it hit me the first week I was home. Like, no joke. It had no remorse for me this time around. First week I was home, that's when I started to go deep into it. And you guys, this time it was really, really bad. Really bad. I was in a very, very dark place this time around with it. My boyfriend started a new job. So after we had Samir, about 2 weeks, I want to say 2 weeks after he was born, he started his new job. And that first week that he started his job, I remember just thinking about like work. I was just, like I said, I always have worked, and like working and money has always been something that I'm like always constantly stressed out over. Like I just always am like panicking about it all the time. So to make that decision to stay home was very, very, very hard. And even after I did it, I was regretting it like every single day. But that first week that he started working, that's when that depression hit me all over again, like, and hard, you guys. I would literally just, when he was training, he was going in at 6 in the morning. And our son Tank, he tries your patience. He's a curious 1-year-old. He's into everything. It's like from the sun up to sundown, that boy does not stop. So this time I have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn. And again, I felt like I had no help. He was working. I was at home. I literally laid on the couch and I would not move. I just cried. I cried literally from the time I would wake up until he would come home. And he would look at me like, what, you know, what's wrong with you? You need to snap out of it. And then I'd get even more upset because I felt like he didn't care. And then I remember going to, you know, the doctors, which I think is just so stupid how they don't really talk about it. They have you fill out a paper. And I remember just when we were at his, I want to say 2 months or 1 month, not 2 months, 2 weeks or 1 month checkup, wanting to circle everything so bad and just say, you know, like, yes, I'm feeling this, but I was just scared because I'm like, this is bad. Like, I was in a very, very dark spot. And again, when I felt like I was reaching out to people and saying how I felt, to the few people I did, I felt like they didn't care. They just played it off. Oh, yada yada this, you know, you'll be okay, you're strong, you got this. Now I know sometimes we don't want other people's problems to really be ours, and it might not be intentional, but the thing with, you know, depression and postpartum depression, a lot of times people mistake it for not being as serious as it really is. So this time around when I had Samir, you guys, this was probably only 2 months ago that, you know, I was going through this. So it's still, you know, still so fresh to me. But 2 months ago was when it went from, okay, this is bad. I know I'm depressed. I know something's wrong. You know, what do I do? To it spiraled out of control to the point where me and my boyfriend had a really big disagreement, to the point where we were gonna actually split up and just be done altogether. And I was just crying, and you know, we're fighting, and I'm telling him all these things that I felt. I just felt like so alone. I felt like I was always just so overwhelmed, and I just felt alone. I felt like no one cared, no one listened. Everybody just felt like I was supposed to do all of this by myself with no complaints at all and pretend I'm okay. And that's what most of us do. You know, most of the time when we're going through something, we're too ashamed, we're too embarrassed to talk about it because we're worried about how it's going to make us look. And then having those feelings on top of the things that we're already feeling, you know, the self-hate, you know, the self-criticism that we're going through, that makes it so much worse. So when we had this argument, I had pretty much my breaking point where I went into the bathroom, I locked myself in the bathroom, and I just cried. Like, I cried so hard. I felt like every emotion, every stress every ounce of pain that I was feeling, I felt like all of it was just coming out. And he came in the bathroom, you know, and he said to me, I think a lot of your anger and your problems are from things in your past that you need to let go of. And then I remember just like crying and saying, you know, I'm not over my dad. And he said, you can't keep using that. You know, you can't keep hanging on to that anger to be the excuse of, you know, the stuff that you do, or why you are the way that you are, why you don't talk, why you have everything held up inside of you. He's like, you know, maybe you need to talk to a counselor. And you guys, I've thought about in the past of talking to counselors, but again, I was just too ashamed or too embarrassed to talk about how I was feeling. So I would keep that all inside, and then I would go through these episodes where I would have these outbreaks of depression mode where it would just get me down hard. So I basically felt like at that point, when I had that episode, when it was literally like my rock bottom of this, at that point, we were talking about just splitting up and being done, but I felt like I just wanted to run away. Like, I didn't want to be with my kids. I did, but you know, that depression had such a grip on me that my mind, I felt like I couldn't even control what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and I didn't even understand why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. I just wanted to like run away, and I just felt like I was so miserable. I hated my life. And then when I was in that bathroom, when I broke down, when I was crying, and when he said all that stuff to me, I was like, you know what? I'm saying I hate my life. I'm saying all these things that I'm so miserable about. And I have all this anger that, you know, of things that I never let go of. And I'm letting that control me being a mother, me being a partner, me being a good person, because I kept all of that stuff inside of me all the time. And then now I got postpartum depression, and it's like just dragging me down, pulling me down. Then I had to think about my kids, and I'm like, you know, I was so distant because I had let it get such a grip on me. It let me get me so down where I was just walking around just crying. And even Lakin would come up to me and say, why are you crying, mommy? And it's, you know, I would get so irritated, you know, with him saying that. And then when I had that moment where I was at rock bottom, I thought about that. And then I thought about, you know, my 4-year-old can sense and see something's wrong. And he's expecting the, you know, the best mother, the loving mother. And I'm not giving that to him. I'm not giving it to any of my other kids because I let this take over me. I let it control me. After we had that conversation, after I had that final breakdown, when I went to my doctors for my next birth control shot, I had brought up how I was feeling, because at that point I'm like, okay, maybe this has gotten so bad that maybe I do need like some help for real. Because I was feeling a lot of scary, dark things. Like, I was even having like panic attacks. I don't know what it was, but I felt like I was always having this fear of me dropping the baby, and it was like scaring the crap out of me, you guys. Like, I would be like holding him, and all I would envision is dropping him, and it's literally, I'm not even kidding, it scared the, excuse my language, it scared the shit out of me. So when I went to my appointment to get my shot, I had brought up kind of, you know, because they're like, oh, how you feeling, how's the baby? Because at this point he was gonna be 4 months. Yeah, he was about 3 going to be 4 months. And all these times before, like I said, it was always just a paper, going to the pediatrician, circle how you're feeling, and if they feel like off of this score, they're gonna determine if you're depressed or not. And I feel like when you're going through that, 9 times out of 10, we're going to lie and say everything's okay because we're ashamed to express what's going on, because we think we're going to be judged. We think it's going to make us a bad mother. We think it's going to make us a bad partner, when in reality, it doesn't. You can't let that stuff get a grip of you. You can't let it control your life. And you guys, trust me, it was a very hard time And it was probably even harder for me to get control of myself back, to step outside of it and see, hey, you know, I can't let this define me as a mother. I can't let this define me as a partner. And I gotta snap out of this for real for my kids. So when I would talk to my doctor and I had said, you know, kind of the things that I was feeling, I didn't spill it all out. Of course not, you know, because I was never used to doing that. It was something I never was comfortable doing. But they had brought up, you know, maybe getting like some medication, and I'm not really a medication person. Like even having C-sections, pain medicine and that, I'll take it for like a couple days and then I just don't take it anymore. So I felt like if I did that, maybe it wasn't gonna probably fully work for me, but then I didn't want, at that point, you know, after having that last conversation with my boyfriend when we were on like our breaking point, when I was at rock bottom, I felt like I shouldn't let medication be able to control how I feel about myself, how I feel about my life. And with me saying that, I'm not saying nobody else, if you're to that point where you feel like you need it, don't not seek help because of what my situation was. Because again, we're all different, we all feel different things, and some people handle things in a way different way. So me, I know myself, as far as medication, I'm not really the best. I don't really react the best with medication, so I try to avoid them and I try to handle things naturally and in my own way. So I said, you know, I don't want medication. I'm gonna try to get out of this on my own. And I feel like if I can't in a couple weeks or so, then maybe I'll consider it. So at that point, that was probably the last time that I had a breakdown and I cried. I had to really sit there and just be open to how I was feeling and decide that I wasn't going to let that control my life anymore. I wasn't going to let depression take over who I was and make me just feel so miserable and feel dead. I felt like I felt nothing inside. And then I just thought about my kids, like, you know, they didn't ask for this. They didn't choose to be here. It's not their fault. And for me to put that resentment on them and to have so much anger and take that out on them when it's not their fault at all, you know? So with all of that, you guys, I just want to say, I feel like when it comes to postpartum depression or any type of depression, anxiety, or any of that, I don't feel like the platform for you to talk about it or to get the help that you need is really there like it should be. And especially from the people that we are around the most. I don't feel like people take it as serious as they should. So if you guys are feeling any of those things or just not feeling like yourself, we know ourselves better than anybody else. We know when something is wrong. If you're starting to feel like that, don't bottle it in, you guys. If you need to talk to somebody, do it. Reach out. Even if it's me, if you're going through this now, if you need to reach out to me, I'm here. Because like I said, I feel like if people would have listened to me or took it more serious when I was going through the things that I was going through and feeling the things that I was feeling, I maybe could have prevented this second time around, you know, prepared myself for it better. But I kind of just threw it under the rug and forced myself to just get over it because everybody else was telling me to, you know. They didn't want to accept that something was really wrong. So with all of that, I'm a very ugly crier. With all of that, I just want to say that you are not alone in any of this. It doesn't make you a horrible mother. You're not a bad mother for feeling any of those things. But after, you know, a week or two, if you still feel like that it has a control over your life, talk to somebody. Like for real, talk to somebody. And if you feel like the people that you're around, your loved ones, your partner, whoever, you feel like, oh God, my foot's falling asleep. If you feel like they're not really listening, then maybe that's when it's time to kind of step outside of that and actually try to talk, because talking is good for the soul. I feel like I'm talking to a therapist right now, actually. Why pay for a therapist? I can get on here. But anyways, yeah, it's just talking, you guys, and that's always been my problem. I've always had people be able to come to me and talk to me about many things, and I've always been that good shoulder to cry on and always lead people on what they should do, but I never did that for myself. And with me doing that, I just let depression take over who I was and let it define me as a person. And I'm just very fortunate that I was able to see the raw and the ugly of it and overcome it and choose me and not depression. Because you can have a choice in it. It's just sometimes other people need more help in overcoming it than others. So you are not alone. If you are a new mama, don't just assume, you're gonna get it. Because like I said, I didn't get it with my first one. But at the end of the day, what do they say? It doesn't judge. It does not discriminate. It can happen to anyone at any time. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be right off the bat, right away. Like I said, with Tank, I had it and then I felt like I got over it, which I probably wasn't. I just kind of forced myself to think I was okay when I still wasn't okay. I should have talked to somebody. I should have done more to prevent it from happening again. But just talk to somebody, you guys. Don't let it bottle up inside of you. Don't let it break you down as a woman, as a person. Don't let it defeat you. Don't let it define you. If you need to talk to somebody, there's people out there, there's options. I wish I would have took those routes instead of getting to the darkest of dark with it, because it was scary. It was very scary. I didn't want this to be a super long video at all, and I feel like it probably is now. I hope, my story and just the things that I've went through with it can kind of help somebody else. And just to know, again, you are not alone. You're not the only one that this can happen to. So just don't be afraid to reach out to somebody if you feel like it's controlling you and you're losing control of yourself. This was very hard, you guys. Very hard to talk about. This is probably the first time I've ever really broke down and talked about it. Because I never, like I said, I always felt alone. I always felt like I didn't have anybody to really listen. And I can say after that last final breakdown, and me and my boyfriend kind of just like laid it all out, and we recognized the things that we both did wrong and the things that we both went through with depression on both ends, and let it kind of control us. And now we've seen it in a different light, and we've kind of helped each other understand the things that we were both kind of just shoving under and kind of brushing off and not really trying to tackle together. So if you have that support from your partner, or if you feel like they don't care, a lot of times it's the depression making you think that. I swear, a lot of times they're not even intentionally trying not to be there for you. It might come across that because they might just not understand it, because it's hard to understand. I'm gonna end this here, you guys. Just know you are worthy, you are beautiful, you are strong. You can overcome anything that this life throws at you. You just have to get control of who you are. And always, that's like my number one thing to say, is remember who you are. Don't lose sight of that. If you feel like you're hitting a point in your life where you are forgetting those things, then talk to somebody. I have my email linked below. If any of you ever need to reach out to speak, whether it's just to vent, I'm here, because talking will do you so much good. It will relieve so much off of you. And just to know that you're not alone in this, and that you have someone that's there for you to listen, will help you so much.